second panel, we're going to talk about the EPD of tomorrow, the envisioned future. And as you can tell here by the number of chairs, we have some great people to join us. Stacey Smedley, please take a seat here in front of your photo. Building transparency. Yes, please. Warm hand. Alexander Both, Dramble. Where do we have Alexander? There you are, next to Stacey. And Christer Jens. There's Christer. Favorites and rerun here up on stage. Wonderful. And then from Sigma Software, we have Alexander Baljuk. Please take a seat. Sorry. And a warm hand to Alexander also. And like before, we'll take questions from you if there is time. So please type in the questions that might pop up during this panel discussion here. So I'm going to step down, otherwise I'm going to topple over these boxes. So let's start with you, please. You are a colleague. Your colleague presented before.
Yes, correct.
And he talked about AI, of course. And let's dig a little bit deeper into this topic here. AI and LCA generation is, and also verification, of course. These two application fields are currently intensely debated, right, Alexander? So we're looking ahead as an AI expert. It's difficult, all these acronyms, AI expert. What are in your opinion, the key challenges that withhold AI to become an enabling factor instead of limiting factor when bringing credible LCA and EPD into scale? So what goes to go from limiting to enabling in terms of AI usage, please?
Yeah, first of all, we should understand that AI is not a magic tool.
Not a magic tool.
It will not do like LSA work for practitioners and verifiers. But what it can do, and you should strive to achieve this goal, is to improve the work. And when we are talking about this improvement, the first thing is data. AI is impossible without data, and we need the quality data. And what AI can help potentially, it's to, first thing is gather this data from different sources. Of course, we have all these databases, like we discussed on the lunch, Gabi, etc., and these secondary average data sets. But there are many products which are not covered yet with the data. And when you start running like the real ESA, you need to find those data from many areas, especially if you're covering the scope 3. And here, actually, the AI can help, because what it can do is actually work with huge amount of data, which is hard for a real person. For example, you have a task to create, I don't know, 100 of EPDs. It might take like a year for you, for one person, to create all these things. And AI can help you to be more productive, to make it faster. This is probably the first enabler, let's say. But there are, of course, limitations that we already talked about. And the first limitation is security and some regulations. In EU, we already have this AI Act, but I believe there are upcoming in other countries some similar documents, which are limits what we can do, what we cannot do without AI. And the importance to think about security. All these data leaks, etc., it's something to consider, especially if you have information which may cause the company for which you are doing this LSA process some problems in the future. And probably another thing that verifiers can get the benefit from, that when you already have all this information collected, and you need to verify that all this data is relevant, here AI also can help you to speed up your work, to highlight something that is not usual for typical EPD for this product or similar product. But for that, we still need big amount of data. AI doesn't work without data. So data is the first thing.
Thank you very much, Alexander. If you'd like to comment, yes, please, Christer.
I think I agree. I mean, we learned in our first presentation the different forms of AI and so on. And I mean, in our context is like you can use computer vision to identify what components are in that 3D model. Is it a screw? Is it a front? These kind of things you can train. For example, we trained a couple of other things like how long it takes to cut a piece of wood. It's a process of wood cutting, right? Something you need to know. And if you have a couple of data points that you can train these models with, I mean, you need a couple of them, which we got. And it's really, really tedious to reach out to sub-suppliers and their sub-suppliers to actually count the seconds of their wood cuttings, you know, like it's a tedious process, but you need these data points to actually create some AI tools to support yourself. And I don't think that AI takes over everything. I think it's an assistant for you that makes your life easier if you use it right.
Thank you, Christer. Turning now to you, Stacy. You shared your views and work to increase the availability and also, of course, the accessibility of various data qualities for various application fields. And also how you can use them in the construction sector. From your point of view, what would your opinion be on the critical components that need to evolve in this field and also maybe be built to have functioning LCA and EPD ecosystems that effectively drives global decarbonization objective and strategies, of course, in your sector, the construction sector?
Gosh, that's a very simple question. Thank you so much. I think it'll take 20 minutes to answer that question, so I'll try to be concise. But I think there's layers to all of this, and you heard a lot about the harmonization and the standards and regulatory from the previous panel, which I think was a really good, lively discussion. I think one of the things that has to happen for this to work as an ecosystem is the policies have to reflect not only kind of the academic size of methodologies and standards, but it also has to take into account the use of the data and the people that are going to have to be compliant with it. So if you think about the manufacturers that are going to have to navigate PEFs, that's so many three-letter acronyms, like you mentioned, PEFs, CPRs, EPDs, and DPPs, all these three-letter acronyms, that we need to work to simplify that so they can basically generate that data one time and have it be foundationally compliant with all of those different methods and regulatory requirements. Otherwise, the amount of money that they're going to have to spend and time that it's going to take for them to generate different results for their same product is going to really stall our progress, and we don't have time to stall our progress. When it comes to filling the gaps, it was mentioned by Christian, we are working on a project around generic lifecycle assessment data for construction materials. We know that the proliferation of EPDs or PEFs are going to take some time globally, and we need to make sure that we have really good, robust, harmonized generic data that can be used to fill those gaps and then drive the desire and the market demand for product-specific information. So that's going to be a globally aligned, harmonized LCA data set that will be published openly and available to everyone to fill those gaps. So we're excited about that part too. But yeah, we all need to be working together. I think this is a global problem, and if we're not speaking the same language and setting the same methods, it's going to take much longer than we have.
So, Stacy, how about other industries and their progress here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it ties to that previous question. Again, there are different regulatory standards that are coming on board for different sectors. We're hearing a lot of demand on our side from the manufacturers that come to us that are looking at EPDs in the construction sector and saying, we want those for our products, should we? So I think, again, it's our responsibility to guide the manufacturers down a path, lets them get familiar with life cycle assessment, gets them going on that process while we're working to standardize that compliance method on top. But I definitely think there's interest and there's a movement to get to publicly accessible, third-party verified, credible product data for every product, like I mentioned in my presentation.
Thank you very much, Stacy, indeed. So, Alexander, turning to you, Rambo offers LCA consulting services globally. And from your point of view, also reflecting back on the wonderful sticker case, very appreciated. Everybody at my lunch table wanted to have sticker kitchens, just so you know. So yeah, here we go. Even in New Zealand. So, yeah, so that's maybe calculating the carbon footprint for the travel, the shipping, but we'll see. But anyways, so how can we ensure that the knowledge generated in this type of pioneering projects, like the sticker case, is successfully transferred to other solutions and also affordable solutions, like the other 90%. You work with the SMEs a lot at Rambo, when they're obligated to report their performance on their products. How could we sort of transfer the knowledge that you have developed from for instance, this project?
Yeah, so maybe I can start with that, and maybe you can maybe finish. So what we took a lot of learnings out of this project, especially this automating these indicators that need to be calculated by hand and so on. And so the key thing we get with our approach is that, well, we just fill in all the parameters on the input side, but then we get all the results automatically in one place. And you know, sometimes you have to readjust and make changes to the model, and it's all very time consuming because you have to update all the tables, graphics, and so on. So basically you have to do everything again, maybe in the review process, maybe before that even. And with this solution, it's now, well, it's all much, much quicker to get to the results. And if there needs to be change something, then it's quite easy to just do the change and already have the results in place. So this really reduces the amount of time spent, therefore making this whole thing also maybe cheaper for our clients. So they benefit from this as well. And yeah, on the input side, I think this is maybe something for you. So the 3D model approach is really something that is interesting for, I think, a lot of clients that have those 3D models, because data collection is always a struggle. And I've spent so many hours developing things that help collecting input data, so primary data, and you never get it right the first try. So it's always a mess in a way. And this visual thing of collecting data, I think this could be a game changer because it helps our clients to do this more intuitively.
Thank you. Christer, your perspective here, please.
I mean, all the parts, all the components in the tool can be recycled. You can recycle your data, and that is something I experience that people don't do. They have a new Excel sheet, they fill in all that stuff again and again and again.
Can you turn just your mic a little bit towards your mouth, just a little bit there. Good.
And so, yeah, the data collection is the most expensive part of doing an EPD. It's very time consuming, and I'm happy that Rumble cut themselves kind of shorter in that regard. I mean, I don't know how much money you would make if we don't develop this tool, right? So it's a great opportunity to actually empower people and then not give the entire cake to these big guys, like maybe supporting the SMEs. And I think that's across all industries the same thing. We are monopolizing more and more and more, and the same accounts for the EPD industry.
Hang on, just one follow-up to you, Christer. So do you have any ideas how this could be spread? I mean, your model, of course, it's a great model for Sticker, but it doesn't have to be kitchens. It could be anything, basically. Or maybe it's Alexander.
No, this is basically
open access. It cannot be right that the data is costing myself, I don't know, 20K a year. What small company is paying so much money? And they have to do these EPDs. So they have to go to the big guys to do these LCAs. And that is lobbyism, and that is a political thing almost. Mm-hmm. So I think free access is probably the way.
Free access, open data. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up. Some thumbs down over there. Yeah, we'll talk about that after the coffee tables. So Stacey, your point of view here, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, because of the legislation in the U.S. going straight to EPDs as the compliance mechanism for construction products in a way where there's millions, billions of dollars going towards it. There's a $100 million EPD grant program as part of that legislation that actually gives grants to manufacturing industry orgs to develop EPD generators for their material category that can then be enabling that entire material category of manufacturers to leverage those generators in a way that kind of demonopolizes that landscape and brings more innovative startups into the fold to try to create the solutions. So again, we're seeing that kind of thing start to happen, but it comes through investment from legislation on funding that part, not just the compliance.
Right.
Thank you, Stacey. Any comments from Alexander, Christer, or Alexander? Confusing, Alexander or Alexander? You're good. Okay, let's see. We have two questions already here from the audience. Terrific. I think the first one goes to you, Alexander. How do you ensure data quality and consistency when starting to use AI?
The first thing I will repeat myself, it's amount of data. like all these AI models, they're working, learning on the data. So if we provide huge amount of data, we actually don't know how it works inside, and it's one of the issues. But having huge amount of data, it somehow do the job and provide the answer. For example, in this data set, I analyzed like hundreds of previews, and what you provided, it's not aligned with those. And it says, how we don't know. And actually to reflect this issue, because some like board members or decision makers, they will can ask why it says in this way. Can someone describe me? And no, we don't have an answer because it's like a black box, this AI thing. We provide data, ask question, and it provides an answer. And to reflect this, there is like new researchers to make it more or less clear for people how to make decision. It's like in progress, making this more understandable AI. And it should answer the question how it's achieve this goal. But for now, we just trust that it created the good result, or we can ask another model to do the same thing and compare the results and understand that it's like credible, and we can make some changes in our processes according to this result. So that is like how verification may work.
So Alexander, from your professional point of view here, where is how would you foresee the collaboration or the input of AI into the EPD system? Let's say in 5 years. If we meet here in 5 years and have this conference, what is the role? How has AI affected the EPD work?
I would say that overall, having a lot of EPDs created in those 5 years, we have this bar like hundreds of thousands. That will enable another approach. Actually, that you already started working. If companies create a digital twin of their products and have this EPDs collection from different companies, you can start with AI the simulation, changing, for example, materials from which you are building current product, and even don't creating the real product, but just simulating it within AI. Okay, I will change this material on this, I will change the process of manufacturing on this, and you like instantly have the result as an impact on the environment of those changes. And you can make a decision to change the process or materials. And the next thing is supply chain. It's actually this big scope 3. It enables us to take decision. Okay, if we change something in our supply chain and we get materials not from this supplier, from another, and it's quite easy to calculate what will be the result. And it will impact the whole industry because all suppliers would like to be comparable with others. They need to change what they are doing in their processes to provide this good results in sense of impact on the environment. And that is incredible change that's, I don't know, 5 years or not, but it will definitely impact the overall ecosystem.
Stacey and Alexander too, I guess.
Can I offer one thing that I hope AI is not helping us with in 5 years? We should not be parsing PDF document versions of EPDs in 5 years using AI. That should all be digital. So I'm hoping AI is doing what you're talking about.
No more PDFs, huh?
Not that anymore.
Thank you, Stacey. Alexander.
Yeah, so to get to your point, what you just said with helping with building the inventory, and when I look, well, sometimes we just model things when we have to go down the supply chain and see how our basically subcomponents manufactured, things like that. And so sometimes we don't even know, and you really have to dig into the details. Okay, how our parts may be created, and how can I reflect this with data sets which I have. And I could imagine that AI is really helpful here to basically automatically make suggestions how a certain part, of which we don't really know how it's manufactured, but how this is done, and make suggestions which data sets could fit here. Of course, we would still have to verify this as those creating the models, but this could be really helpful, and also AI could take over the whole documentation of that. So, well, we can basically do what we most love, I guess, and just create the model and not care really about the documentation and stuff. And well, if AI could take this over, this would be super helpful.
Probably the interpretation as well. Yeah.
Maybe also the interpretation, right? So if you have, like we do, our extensive set of raw data, could imagine that AI automatically can basically do the interpretation of the results and pinpoint where hotspots are and things like that. So this would also significantly reduce, time and effort for preparing LCAs. Yeah.
Very promising indeed, huh? I'd say. So we have a question, one more question here. In manufacturing, I think this goes to you, Stacey, or maybe somebody else in the panel would like to add. In manufacturing, it is common for material suppliers to provide MSDS, another acronym here, to their customers as mandated by regulations such as Safety and Health Administration, the OSHA. Why not mandate EPDs too?
I mean, I think that's what we're starting to see. Again, there's voluntary and mandatory compliance, which we heard about earlier. And I think the way that the U.S. again is approaching it is through this labeling approach, where just like we have Energy Star for energy consumption on some products, we now are going to have a low carbon labeling program that requires an EPD to be part of that. It requires a certain carbon intensity value. So it's not quite the same as what OSHA is doing. We could go down that. That's climate regulation, actually, is what that's talking about, where it goes a step farther and it just mandates that you must have this disclosure as part of what you provide us, full stop, no matter what. And maybe that's a 5-year plan versus a 2-year plan.
Thank you, Stacey. Any other reflections from the panel here? No? So the final question for me goes, actually, you already answered it, Alexander, and from your perspective, from the AI perspective, but we talk about the future here. So Stacey, let's envision that we sit here, or I stand and you sit in 5 years on this stage. Where are we at in terms of EPDs?
Where do I hope we're at, or where do I think we'll be at? Those are probably two different answers.
Yes. Which one do we want, hope or R? Hope. Okay, let's do the hope.
The inspiring answer.
Yes.
In 5 years from now, we have a globally aligned methodology and standard for product category rules that enable full comparability of EPDs for any manufacturer of any product that is being regulated to do so. In a digitally fluent ecosystem that's leveraging AI to do all of the things on top of the data versus having to create the data for us.
Very inspirational, wonderful. I like that. Alexander.
Well, what can I add to that? This is really sounds pretty promising. So I could add that the whole data collection process and so on. So we need to more streamline the whole creation process, right? And so I want to look at the input side for LCA because, as I said, our clients really struggle to get their primary data right. And so I hope that in 5 years' time, we will see a lot more integration into existing systems like CAD or ERP systems, getting the data right out of those systems, maybe with support of AI, who knows? And so we get, a good data quality with which we can work to create the actual LCA model. So this is really what I'm hoping for.
Thank you, Alexander. Christopher.
For me, since we are doing really durable kitchens, very circular, I hope that we find a solution on how to calculate the recyclability thing. Like that is a huge problem, and the PCRs are super outdated and totally don't fit to our kitchen, and we are still forced to apply those calculation rules. So it doesn't make sense.
Alexander, would you like to add something to your previous AI reflection in terms of 5 years?
Probably a bit. Of course, we may envision this huge change, including AI, but we actually don't know what will happen to AI itself in 5 years. It may bring some new opportunities we even can't imagine right now. Something like that.
Scary and also hopeful, I guess it is, in a combination here. So there is actually one more question that came in from the audience here. How can the slow process of developing PCRs be compatible with the scale-up of EPD's outputs and LCA tools? That'll be the last question here.
Well, I think the process is the process. And there's a reason why a PCR takes time so that it has the right input. But I think imagine if we only did that one time per material category versus the 25 times we might do it for the same category right now.
Would you like to add?
Don't have.
No, you're good.
It's a very good question. I'm not too deep into the actual PCR creation process, so I would maybe skip that one.
Okay, well, there's actually one more here. This will be the last one. Is there a trend visible in the request for EPDs on product groups for which there is no PCR developed yet? You're nodding, Stacy. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole kind of outside of construction. I mean, we can point to them in EPD International, but I think there are categories. I know work is happening on a semiconductor PCR right now, for instance, or at least like the baseline for one, as some of these large companies want to start to report their product emissions.
Excellent.